on his way. Devil is on his way. Devil is on his way, motherfucker. The devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees. Devil is on his way. Fall to your knees. Devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees. Devil is on his way. Motherfucker, he's on his...
Mountain Murders is an Appalachian true crime podcast. Listener discretion is advised. The show contains graphic language and depictions of violence. It may not be suitable for all audiences.
We say fuck a lot. Hey guys, welcome back to Mountain Murders.
I'm Heather.
And I'm Dylan. Is that better?
Yeah.
I love it.
You love what?
You.
Ugh.
Oh, and when you're about to smack me.
I'm not giving you any money.
Okay.
Okay, you've had your allowance for the week.
Whoa.
Don't ask me for any more money.
That's bullshit.
Okay.
All right. So
you got your pork and beans and cigarette money, which, by the way, one of our listeners gave you the best railroad freight hopper name.
I got my hobo name now.
From now on, you are known as Derailed.
Derailed Dylan.
And I feel like that's what we should call you on the show.
Yes, I would like to thank, hope I'm probably going to mispronounce this, but I think it was Suan, maybe. Or down here we call you Sue-Ann, but Suan, however you say that. If I'm not saying it wrong, I apologize. But thank you for the hobo name, because that moniker I will wear with pride from henceforth.
You should also be happy that one of our listeners, Tiffany, reached out and said she would gladly fund some of that pork and bean money that you need.
See, I mean, you told me.
People care.
You told me that, and I was at work having not a good day. And that just really lifted my spirits to know that people care if I have pork and beans or not. Seriously.
Folks, your love keeps lifting him higher and higher, you fucking bitch. Oh, sorry.
Oh, well, yeah, I think that fucking bitch was directed at me, not the listeners.
No, it was directed at you.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah.
So what, I think, what do you have on the
Well, we were going to open
table?
actually with some true crime news. This is a recent news story. It's terrible. It's out of Florida. It's two boys that were found stabbed and bludgeoned to death Wednesday morning of this week. Their mother found them dead, and their aunt's boyfriend has been arrested in the double slaying.
Oh, my God.
30-year-old Mark Wilson Jr. allegedly used a hammer and a knife to kill the two boys, Robert Baker, age 12, and 14-year-old Tayton Baker, in their Melrose, Florida home.
Just what would possess someone to do that?
Well, the motive for the slayings is unclear right now, but the Putnam County Sheriff, his name is Gator DeLoche.
Oh, my God.
Which is a fantastic name
that's
for
the
a
best
sheriff, right?
Yeah,
especially like a southern sheriff or a Florida sheriff.
Yeah, he's like chasing people around in boats down and looking for them in the swamp and shit. Yeah,
like there's that Burt Reynolds movie, Gator. Okay, we're getting off the topic here. But anyway, he says that Wilson had been allegedly on methamphetamine prior to the boy's death.
Well, I guess some drug psychosis or some kind of...
Well, they think it may have been a contributing factor to this heinous crime.
I'm still going to say that I think he's just a horrible person that, you can't blame the drugs. I think he's an evil... I'm sorry. I've had fun in my day. I've known people that got high and whatnot on certain drugs, and nobody killed anybody.
The boy's family had recently moved into this home after relocating about 6 days earlier, or 16 days. So they'd only lived there for about 2 weeks.
And it was who was the guy?
He was the aunt's boyfriend.
The aunt's boyfriend.
Yeah. And so, out of the kindness of, this woman's hurt, she takes in these kids, and then this happens.
Oh, how terrible is that?
The kid's father is a long-haul trucker, and he left, early that same morning to go to Georgia for work.
And he'll never get to see his children again.
It's really horrible. It's a case we'll keep our eye on, find out what happens. But the guy's been arrested. He's charged. And so I guess now we just wait for a trial.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's cut and dry. They got the guy who did it, sounds like. And the other details that come out are just going to be more sad. It's just going to be pointless. There's no reason to kill some kids anyway. But it's just going to be totally senseless and just some maniac, drug-fueled, whatever. Who knows what he thought he was seeing or doing? Who knows? It's just so sad. I just don't know how you could go on living.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a really terrible story, tragic, but I thought it was important to discuss. Let's take a turn in a brighter direction. Let's give some shout outs. We have brand new patrons who support the podcast at patreon.com/Mountain Murders Podcast. So thanks to our patrons Morgan, Kayla, Aaron, and Sunday.
Oh, wow. That's a lot of them, right? For us.
We've had a great week.
Yeah, it's been a good week, and we hope you guys enjoy all the bonus content over there, and some of it's some funny stuff, some goofy stuff, and some really good stories as well. And there's a lot of content over there, and we hope they have fun going through that stuff.
This week's Patreon episode covers the infamous New Orleans case of Zach Bowen and Addie Hall. You may be familiar with that if you're a true crime buff. It's a big case.
Wow, I didn't know that story, and I was blown away by the ending.
But
totally.
You can access that episode as well as other bonus content and different things at Patreon.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff over there. And you can also reach out to Mountain Murders, mountainmurderspodcast.com. That's where that's where I got my hobo name. And that's where my pork and beans fund is, I guess. Right?
Sure, yeah. Well, we have PayPal.
Yeah,
you can PayPal Dylan's pork and beans fund at mountainmurderspodcast@gmail.com.
Oh, man, we can have a pork and bean drive and then give it to needy kids. Yeah.
They don't want to eat your pork and beans.
Well, I don't know if kids even eat pork and beans now.
They don't.
Well, yeah, so you have a really great story today, right?
Right. Well, we're going on vacation this week.
Yeah.
Which is exciting. We're actually going to New Orleans. That's why I chose the story of Zach and Addie for our Patreon episode this week. And also, the case we're going to be discussing today takes us a bit out of our typical Appalachian region. It's going to cover a story out of Tennessee, which, of course, is part of the Appalachian region. But we're also going to be into Mississippi. It's a wild tale.
It is a wild tale, and it's one that you probably heard maybe parts of, but a lot of people may not have gotten the full picture of the entire story because there's a lot going on, and it literally spans decades.
I should mention this is going to be a 2-part episode.
Yes, there's a lot to go through.
So we'll get this week, and then next week we're going to drop the second part because it's such a tale. I mean, it is so bizarre. It is like the stuff of fiction.
Yeah, you couldn't make this shit up. For real.
All right. Are you ready to get started today, Dylan?
I'm ready to dive in with 2 feet.
Let's dig into this. The State Line Mob was an association of criminal elements that operated in the 1950s and 1960s at the Mississippi-Tennessee state line in Alcorn County, Mississippi, and McNairy County, Tennessee, along U.S. Route 45. The State Line Mob was involved in bootlegging, gambling, prostitution, tourist fleecing, robbery, and murder.
Oh, God, what's tourist fleecing?
These all sound like my favorite things.
Isn't that when you go to Pigeon Forge and your kids make you spend $600 in 24 hours? That's tourist fleecing.
Tourist fleecing? Yeah, that, or maybe it's like you get to go to a sheep farm and you get to shear the sheep and you have a bag of fleece.
No,
I don't know.
That's a very literal interpretation.
No, I think it's like, just conning people.
Oh, okay. All right. Just tricking them out of their money with some story or some gimmick, right? Okay.
Right. I mean, these all sound like my favorite things, right? Where could it go wrong? A few members of this organization were from Phoenix City, Alabama, and they were displaced from that town when martial law was declared by the governor, and the Alabama National Guard attempted to clean up the town.
Oh, so it was that bad?
That bad, Dylan.
Wow.
The organization owned and operated motels, restaurants, and clubs at the Mississippi-Tennessee state line and in the northern portion of Alcorn County, just north of Corinth, Mississippi. These establishments were centers for every form of vice and reaped hundreds of thousands of dollars from the illegal moonshine sales and, of course, other contraband. Primary owners were Jack and Louise Haithcock, Carl Douglas, also known as Towhead. Well, I'm sorry, his name is Carl Douglas White, but he's also known as Towhead.
That's a great nickname.
And if you don't know what a towhead is, Dylan, can you explain what a towhead is?
That is typically a small, a young child. They'll call them, they'll say, that child's toe-headed. it means his hair is so blonde, it's basically white.
I was called a towhead.
Almost albino status. Just super blonde hair.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I had my hair was almost Snow White. It was like platinum blonde. And I had a cousin who was a little bit older than me, and every time I would be around him, he would tease me and be like, she looks like an old woman. And he would do this little shake, and I would cry.
Oh my God, that's mean.
I know. I would cry and be like, I can't help my hair.
I can't help my hair's old.
Yeah. So towhead white. And then there was another man named W.O. Haithcock. Now, the state line mob gained national attention throughout the 1960s for its ongoing feud with the famed McNairy County Sheriff, Buford Pusser.
See, now this is where the story takes a turn to where I'm like, oh, I remember, famously the movie Walking Tall. It's a one-man war on, gambling and vice and criminals in his local rural communities. But I didn't realize how big a story the real story was.
It's exciting.
Yes.
Well, as you mentioned, the Walking Tall film and, it had some sequels, were based on Pusser's war against the state line mob and some other criminals. Let's get into this. Buford Pusser. What a name. He was born in Finger, Tennessee.
Oh, God, I got fingered in Tennessee. You knew that was coming, didn't you?
You probably did.
Oh.
You should probably save that story for another time, Dylan.
Oh, gosh.
Okay. On December 12th, 1937, he was the son of Helen and Carl Pusser. He was one of 3 kids, and the Pussers labored on their small farm during the Great Depression. His father eventually would become the police chief of Adamsville, Tennessee. As a child, Buford was incredibly shy, often clinging to his mother's apron strings. Helen Pusser had to force her son to go to school. In an interview some years later, his mother claimed his dislike of school was due to this intense fear about getting lost.
Oh, so he was just literally scared to death to get out of his mama's side.
He was afraid he would be lost and separated.
Oh, poor thing.
He told her that he felt it in his bones that he needed to stay close to home.
Oh, gosh, could you imagine a little kid talking like that?
I know, right? And his mother, at the point of this interview, she was elderly, and she was this cute, little grandmotherly woman, and she's telling the story, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cute.
Oh.
Buford Pusser was a high school football and basketball player. I should mention, he is 6'6" tall.
Yeah, he's a big youngin'.
He is. Pusser moved to Oklahoma during his junior year in high school, and from there graduated, and he joined the U.S. Marine Corps, but was discharged due to chronic asthma only 4 months later.
Oh, well, he gave it a shot, but it didn't work out.
Disheartened, he returned to Adamsville briefly. It was while in town after his time in the military that he had his first run-in with the state line Mafia. The Plantation Club was owned by W.O. Haithcock and sat just inside the Mississippi border. Pusser, young man, he wants to have a night on the town. He goes to the Plantation Club and tries his hand at dice, and having good luck, he was on this winning streak. But it was abruptly interrupted when Haithcock's men threw Pusser out the back door.
Oh, so he's in there winning, kind of making a big scene. Everybody's happy, and they just toss him out and don't pay the man.
The thugs brutally beat Pusser, take his money, and they leave him lying face down in this dirt parking lot just as it begins to rain.
What the hell kind of place is this? If you go in there and you win, or, actually going to beat the house for once, they just beat the shit out of you?
Pusser drove himself to a clinic in Sulmer where he had to have 192 stitches.
Oh, my God. They damn near killed him, it sounds like.
He had to close up lacerations in his head and face. It was then that Buford Pusser realized he wanted to someday take down the Mafia, who had for years strong-armed, robbed, and brutalized the area.
Well, I can't blame him for having strong feelings at that point.
Pusser worked briefly at a funeral home, then traveled the semi-professional wrestling circuit in the Southeast. In 1957, he moved to Chicago, where he was a local wrestler known as Buford the Bull.
Yeah, and that's a fitting nickname for him because he's just a big square, big-shouldered, big guy, but just a big, thick guy.
In the ring, we have Buford the Bull, standing at 6'6". In the other corner, we have Derailed Dylan. He is munching on a can of pork and beans right now, coming in. He claims 6 feet tall because he's 6 feet tall untended, but he's really about 5'11".
Excuse me, sir. I really am 6 foot even.
No, you're not.
Yeah, I am. Get the fucking tape out.
Okay, so he wrestled semi-professionally until he got married. He met a woman named Pauline Mullins, and they were married December of 1959. Now, Mullins was a petite blonde divorcee. She had 2 children from a previous marriage, and marriage did seem to ease a loneliness that Buford had in his life. Like, he really kind of settled into, like, the family, being the family man.
Well, I'd say even to this day, wrestling is like a traveling, you got to travel around, do the shows, no matter what level, you're even at the highest level, you got to go all over and do these shows constantly. So I'll say, yeah, that wasn't very good for, I could see him changing his life once he met someone, wanted to be stable.
He's just a small town boy.
Yeah.
Living in a lonely world.
Oh, wait, is that Uptown Girl?
He wanted to
Which one's that?
midnight wrestle in the big city.
Oh, okay.
I made up a song.
Yeah. Wow, I want to hear the rest of that song later.
I feel like doing a musical performance. I don't know.
Yeah, it's inside you. I can see it.
I'll get my tap shoes out.
It wants to come out.
It does.
It wants to get out.
Yes.
It's like an outbreak.
To escape.
Oh my God.
While in Chicago, he found employment at the Union Paper Bag Company as a die cutter, and that is when their first child, her name is Dewana Pusser, is born. Now, shortly thereafter, the Pussers returned to McNairy County. On December 13th of 1959, which was only about 8 days after he married his wife, Buford went back to the Plantation Club and assaulted the owner, W.O. Haithcock.
So he done found him a girl, got married.
Had a baby.
Or wait, he did the wrestling and everything after they whooped his ass like that?
Yes.
So he's done all this
stuff. He'd been away
stuff.
for some years.
Yeah.
Like, it had been probably 2 or 3 years had passed.
So he's decided to settle down back in his hometown, and he just goes down there and kicks some ass.
Yep.
Okay, only 8 days later.
Pusser then took back the money which had been stolen from him during the dice game. Haithcock signed warrants against Pusser, including assault to commit murder and armed robbery. However, an Alcorn County jury dismissed the charges against Pusser. With this, Pusser felt the message was clear. Honest citizens were tired of the state line mafia.
Wow, all those years. I mean, you wouldn't forget that. 192 stitches. That's a lot.
I forgot what his birthday is. He a Taurus?
And he's got scars.
Because
I'm
if
sure.
he's a Taurus, I understand like holding some decades-long grudges and stuff.
Well, I'm sure he's got these marks and scars he's looked at and all that. It took him a while to recover, and he's went and had these other life experiences, but he never forgot. And then he didn't rob the place. He just took back the money they freaking owed him.
Employment opportunities at this time were slim, so Buford continued to wrestle in towns across Tennessee. Carl Pusser resigned from his position as police chief due to failing health, and it was at this time that Buford was given his first chance at a job in law enforcement. He was named the new police chief.
Oh, wow.
In September of 1962, Pusser ran for constable and upset the incumbent by over 100 votes.
So it sounds like a mandate. It sounds like the citizens are like, hey, there's this guy in town. He's a big youngin', and he's not taking any shit. They're tired of the corruption.
Victory at the polls boosted his confidence. Now, taking his job seriously, he made a crusade out of crushing the local illegal whiskey trade and clean out the criminal folks along the state line. Man on a mission.
So he's just kicking ass and taking names.
The McNairy County Sheriff, James Dickey, was in cahoots with the Moonshine Ring, which operated along the state lines of Mississippi and Tennessee. Incensed by the collusion of the local authorities in supporting this criminal activity, Pusser decided to run against Dickey for sheriff, choosing to run as a Republican in a staunchly Democratic county.
Oh, so he just really feels like he's got a chance of winning, right?
His election was assured when Dickey died in an automobile accident 2 days before the election. Some believe that hoodlums concerned about Pusser's win took out Dickie because he was privy to their criminal activity.
Oh, so if Pusser won and kind of cleaned house and come in and maybe he might roll and something comes up and then he'll roll on what everything.
Or build some case and subpoena Dickie, and he'd have to go and testify in the courtroom about everything he knew. And though Pusser had gained quite a bit of traction before this, some folks speculate that he probably would have won anyway. But he was definitely a shoo-in when the challenger, the opposing candidate, is killed. Now, he also had the attention of the state liners at this point. On September 1st of 1964, Buford Pusser became the youngest sheriff at 26 years old in Tennessee history, and he was sworn into McNairy County. Pusser was offered a lot of money to look the other way. Now, initially, I think they came at him and offered him like $300 a month. He turned that down. They came back with $500. Nope. So then they offered him $1,000 a month.
When this is in the mid-60s?
64.
Okay, so that's
quite a bit of money.
That's a chunk of money.
The mobsters threatened to take his children to the swamp and cut their pretty little heads off. But this did not deter Pusser. Buford Pusser often didn't wear a uniform or a badge, so a lot of strangers were not aware of who he was. In the early stages as sheriff, Buford didn't even wear a gun. In an interview, a bar owner named Moore said that sometimes Pusser's lack of identification would lead to trouble because people didn't know he was the sheriff, so when, stuff popped off, people didn't know that they were fighting the sheriff.
Yeah, it sounded like he didn't care.
By all accounts, people in town knew Buford to be fair and honest.
No, so could you imagine these state line guys? There's been corruption for a very long time in the area. Everyone's on board. They're, business as usual. And they figure if we keep, upping the money, this guy's going to take it eventually. But he just wants nothing to do with bribes. He's straightforward. He's probably started right there in his local town, kicking ass, cleaning things out. And so at this point, they're like, what the hell do we do with this guy?
Right. And he would go into a bar and just be kind of hanging out, casually talking to the bar owner. How's business? You doing okay? These people giving you trouble? That kind of thing. And so there might be strangers from out of town, and he would say to them, hey, you need to settle down, or would jump in the middle of some fight or something.
Yeah.
And he would just kick their ass.
He's just big.
Basically.
Big guy, and they're just, going in full throttle and just kicking ass, and probably could take a punch too, because I'm sure he got hit. But yeah, after he's been beat within an inch of his life, and the wrestling and all that stuff, you got to be tough as hell to do all that stuff.
Yeah. In November of 1964, he suffered his first assault by the members of this moonshine ring, ambushed by assailants who stabbed him 7 times and left him to die. Pusser survived and made war on the ring with a vengeance.
See, well, one mistake is trying to kill a sheriff. That's not cool. It's going to bring you heat. I don't care who you are. The biggest mistake they made was the fact that he didn't die, and he's just going to come back twice as hard on him.
In his first year as sheriff, he raided 42 stills and arrested 75 moonshiners. In subsequent years, he expanded his attempts to clean up the crime-ridden state line area by prosecuting prostitution rings and the illegal gaming houses. Pusser had plenty of enemies, so during his time as sheriff, he arrested and jailed more than 7,500 criminals.
Wow.
Dismantled more than 85 stills in 1965 alone. So as you can see, the numbers are there.
Well, see, yeah, it's not just one town or one part of town. He has cost them tens, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars in, damage and operations that are shut down. So he's causing them a very big problem.
And this is in one county.
Yeah.
So every year in one county, 85, 65, 42. I mean, that's a lot of, that's a lot of stills. That's a lot of money.
Well, that's a lot of stills, and he keeps getting people, probably getting the same people as soon as they get out of jail, and, just causing such a headache for this criminal organization.
Now, there are a lot of legends circulating about Buford Pusser, and one of those stories is that he would fight crime with nothing more than a big old stick. And some of these are fabricated, though it is true that he once used a fence post to deliver his brand of justice along with a hickory switch during a domestic squabble he was trying to break up.
A full-on 4x4 fence post.
Yeah.
Or maybe a 6-inch round post, but this is a big chunk of wood.
Yep.
And for a big man.
And then grabbing a hickory switch.
What the hell?
Like your little nanny's going to chase after you with a hickory switch and wear you out.
Oh, man.
Pusser's chasing around this married couple, threatening to whip them if they don't stop fighting.
When your granny sent you to get a switch and you come back with a little baby switch, what happened then?
Oh, my God, my mama would wear my ass out.
Then you get hit with like a big old chunk of tree. God, those little things. My
mama, she didn't make you get your own. She had her own set of hickories, okay? And she kept them on top of the refrigerator in the kitchen. And they were little and thin.
Oh, my God.
And it would hurt like hell.
They would wrap around your damn legs, son. They would eat your little ass up. My great-grandmother grab you by one arm and go to swarping on you, and you'd be running, but you're just running in a circle, and she's going with you.
That is, yes, exactly. Some of our listeners may relate.
Oh, my God. I'm glad my nanny ain't here to spank my ass no more, because I tell you what, she did a good job of it.
My mama, love her, but she was a mean, hateful ass. She was a mean, hateful old woman.
Old school.
Yeah, she was, I don't know. My papa, he was a saint. I don't know how he put up with that woman.
So here comes Pusser in here, a domestic. And, some guy's trying to be a badass and throw his old lady around. Here comes Pusser kicking the damn door in with a damn fence post and a swarping-ass switch and just probably whooped that man's ass, I'm going to guess.
Pusser survived several assassination attempts. On February 1st of 1966, Louise Hathcock attempted to kill Pusser during an on-site investigation of a robbery complaint at the Shamrock. We're going to talk for a few moments here, extensively, if you will, about Louise Hathcock, because I think she is a fascinating study.
Oh my God, do tell.
Louise was called the queen of the state line mafia. Louise was a mobster, and the local men were her companions. Known later as a ruthless and bloodthirsty woman, Louise moved to Tennessee in 1935. Now, she was born March 19th of 1919, and her family had suffered the effects of the stock market crash of 1929, so they moved to Tennessee, hoping to find work and have a better life.
Food, probably.
By 18, Louise knew life was going to be different for herself. She had a vision. She was never going to be poor again.
Well, I'm telling you, that generation that lived through the Depression and those times, those couple decades there, they were a rough, tough bunch of people because they'd been through things. Fortunately, none of us, or many of us, I can't say, somebody, but most of us have never been through that kind of extended hardships. It wasn't like it was for the day or the weekend or the week, months, maybe years.
Yeah.
And literally scratching out. Literally boiling shoes and stuff and eating, drinking the leather juice, I guess. I don't know.
I'm imagining Louise out in the field like Scarlett. I will never be hungry again. And then biting into a raw, rotten turnip.
No, oh my God, those poor people.
But she was never going to struggle, and she was willing to do whatever it would take to change that. With the help of her mother, she landed a job as a bookkeeper for the State Line Club. Flirtatious and finding power in her sexuality, Louise liked conquering men. She met a young player named Jack Hathcock. Now, at first, he refused her advances, and this actually thrilled Louise. She was like, oh, a challenge. She chased after him incessantly until he finally relented, and the pair were married. And while Jack seemed to offer promises of wealth, Louise found a life dominated by men, brutality, and fear. She took regular beatings, was pushed around, and essentially treated like garbage.
Well, that's not good. And that's just going to make her damn tougher and more determined to do for herself, I'm sure.
In 1940, her marriage came to a head. Louise had been stepping out on Jack. She had grown tired of the domestic abuse and domination. When Jack's friend Nelson Timlake found out, and Nelson, he is a player in the State Line Mafia, and he was kind of like a godfather to Jack. You know, like,
oh, okay.
he viewed Jack as his, like, son. So he was infuriated. Nelson told Jack what had happened, even taking him to the location where Louise was located. Jack was not going to be made a fool of by his wife, so he beat Louise almost to death, and she had to spend time in the hospital.
Oh, my God.
But Jack's connections prevented any criminal charges being brought against him. Louise knew she had to play the game harder than anyone else. Fights, murders, and robberies were pretty commonplace at the State Line Club. Louise carried around a ball-peen hammer, often to repair the pictures which were knocked off the wall during these barroom brawls and scuffles. And after this, she begins taking full advantage of her position, taking out anybody who offended her. She would just pull out her hammer and beat them to death.
Yeah, see, for the people who don't know, a ball peen, you got the hammer side, looks, a big fat hammer head like any other hammer. And on the other end, instead of a claw or anything, you have a round, like, knob. This thing is just a bone shattering. You whack somebody with that, and it is going to break bones. Period.
So this became her thing. Somebody pissed her off, owed her money. She didn't like the way they looked at her. She would just beat the shit out of them until, well, she fucking killed them. When Buford Pusser was a teenager, he actually witnessed Louise beat a man in the head with the hammer and kill him.
Oh, my God.
So by 1949, Jack and Louise gained control of the State Line Club and another bar called the Rainbow Room and Foam City.
So I guess these are headquarters for gambling, running girls, and, some drugs, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
And legal whiskey.
She was unhappy in her marriage, often cheating on Jack, unbeknownst to him, and was careful to keep her indiscretions under wraps. It was only when Louise met a man named Pee Wee Walker that things changed. Though Pee Wee was married, he was drawn into this big personality that was Louise. Believing he would eventually leave his wife for her, Louise fell in love with Pee Wee, and about a year into the affair, again, Nelson found out that Louise was cheating.
Oh, my God.
Nelson calls in some tough guys to take care of Pee Wee. It was on June 13th of 1957 that Nelson's men found Pee Wee, beat him, then shoot him execution style in the back of the head.
Oh, so they just totally took him out.
Take him out. Louise, having had her fill of marriage, divorced Jack. She bought the Shamrock Motel, or, I guess it was just known as the Shamrock. She had girls who seduced men in the trailers out back or talked them into gambling their money away. If victims threatened to return with law enforcement, they'd find themselves wrapped in chains at the bottom of the Tennessee River.
Oh, my God. She's freaking ruthless.
Often they would be beaten and robbed before leaving the Shamrock. She was making lots of money, but she was also drinking heavily, and she hated her ex-husband and spent a great deal of time plotting to kill him.
Well, she went through a lot with him, and she sounds like she's a pretty damn mean person herself, but I guess a person like that's just not going to let that go.
Well, and a side note here, I was kind of like, how is she and these other, like, mob types managing to take advantage of all of these people and they continue to come back to these bars?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
I guess that U.S., was it 64, I believe?
So they would get a lot of traveling through people?
They had a lot of travelers.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of these people were tourists. So that's how we get the tourist fleecing.
Oh, okay. So they don't care. They don't really need you to be a repeat customer.
No,
they got plenty
because
of
they've got
people.
a steady stream of people coming into
Yeah,
town,
and so-
knowing there's gambling,
Yeah.
there's sex.
So one wrong
There's
move, or if you get
booze.
duped and caught up in some scheme, or the shit kicked out of you, or whatever, they don't care because they don't want to see you again.
Louise is obsessed with taking out her ex-husband. she concocts a plan. And on May 22nd, 1964, Louise had one of her thugs / friends, comrades, Towhead, to beat her up. So he kicks her ass. She's looking rough as a cob. Then she calls over her ex-husband. He shows up. She blames him for the beating. She killed him, right?
Oh, okay.
And then she states it was in self-defense because he had come over and had beat the shit out of her.
Wow. And he probably has a record. I'm going to assume there's some assaults and violence.
I mean, he's her husband's a fucking thug too. And everybody in town knew when they were married, he'd been terrible to her. He beat her up. She was often seen, beat up, bruises.
Wow, did her plan work?
Yes, it did. So she gets off with the self-defense, strategy. However, many people believe that it was actually Towhead who pumped the 5 bullets into Jack's chest and neck, and not Louise.
Oh, well, I guess, it doesn't really matter. She got done what she wanted. She wanted him dead, and it sounds like would go to any length to get that accomplished.
She was like, vengeance is mine.
Oh, I'm going to kill you, and then I'm going to get off for it.
With Jack out of the picture, Louise's power grew, and she starts taking over. So by the time Pusser became sheriff, her control, she had been running shit for a while, and by the time he comes in, it's starting to kind of wane a little bit, because she didn't have the clout with law enforcement anymore. She couldn't keep paying off the sheriff, couldn't keep paying off law enforcement. By this time, her looks were fading, and alcoholism had taken its toll on her. Physically, mentally.
Right.
She just wasn't as sharp as she was before,
That's not easy to be on top of any kind of violent crowd or organization like this. I mean, it's a full-time job. You got to be cunning. You got to be ruthless. And I'm sure that just you get burnt out at any job. And something like that would start to wear on you mentally, I'm sure.
Well, maybe that's why she attempted to shoot Pusser. She knew it was going to be over soon, one way or another. So let's get into the story about Louise shooting Pusser. In 1966, law enforcement showed up with search warrants at the Shamrock. Louise was intoxicated behind the bar. And I should mention, they're at the Shamrock because someone reported having been robbed. Their purse was stolen while they were there.
So they're coming down there to see what's going on.
And they know that this is very common, so they show up. They've got these warrants. So she cusses out the officers. She's incoherent, slurring. I mean, clearly she's drunk. And she asks Buford to speak privately. So he agrees and takes the search warrants and follows her into apartment number 1 where she lived. Because the Shamrock is a motel, essentially, and a bar. And once she got Pusser into the room, she pulled a .38 snub nose, aimed it at the sheriff. He managed to drop down on the bed, and Louise is drunk, so her reflexes were slower, and she misses his head, and the bullet ended up going through the window and outside. Immediately, Buford draws his .41 Magnum and shoots Louise. She attempted to shoot Pusser again, and that's when he hit her with 3 more bullets. Louise Haithcock became the first person that Buford Pusser killed in the line of duty. Louise still had a glass of whiskey clutched in her hand when she was shot.
Oh, wow. Damn. That's dedication right there.
There's a photo online, the
Really?
evidence, and there's the fucking whiskey glass.
So she had her drink in one hand.
Grip on the whiskey.
And she had
her .38 in the other.
Yeah, shooting at him with the other one. Wow.
A deputy named Petey Plunk. There's some great names.
These names, man, I'm telling you what, these people back then had the best names. That's to be like either a cop or a thug. They just had the best names.
Deputy Petey Plunk was with Buford at the time of the shooting, and he stated that Louise was definitely a dangerous person, and had Buford not, killed her, it was a situation where it was kill or be killed. And so he definitely only killed her because he felt threatened.
Yeah, well, it sounded like a justifiable homicide. I mean, honestly, in the line of duty.
Already a local hero, Buford Pusser's war on the state line mob was brought to national prominence when his wife, Pauline, was killed on August 12, 1967, during an assassination ambush intended for Pusser. Now, according to Buford, his phone rang before dawn on the morning of August 12th, and it was informing him that there was some kind of disturbance on New Hope Road in McNairy County. Pusser responded, and his wife Pauline went along for the ride. It gets early morning. She's like, I'll go with you. So shortly after they passed the New Hope Methodist Church, a car came along, like beside theirs, and the occupant opened fire, killing Pauline and leaving Buford for dead. Doctors said he was struck on the left side of his jaw by at least 2 or maybe 3 rounds from a .30 caliber carbine.
Wow.
He spent 18 days in the hospital before returning home and would need several surgeries to restore his appearance.
Yeah, that's a rifle. A 30 caliber carbine rifle. That's a big shell. That's a, big bullet. It's not a little 22 pistol or something. And he took multiple shots to the side of the face, damn near took his jaw clean off.
And kills his wife.
Kills his wife, and he's still not freaking dead.
Pusser named Kirksey McCord Nix Jr. as the contractor of his wife's killers. And although Nix nor anyone else was ever formally charged, like Pusser felt like he knew who did this.
Yeah, he had his, I guess I'm sure he saw some faces there or knew who he just had recently had a problem with. And Nix comes, it's just a huge character that comes up a lot as the story moves along.
When we get into the second part,
oh my God,
we will get into Nix.
People won't even, if you've not heard this all the way through, you won't even believe the story. I mean, this is like a Hollywood script. It literally is.
Next, Pusser shoots and kills a man named Charles Russell Hamilton. And this is on December 25th, 1968, after responding to a complaint that Hamilton had threatened his landlord with a gun. And from what I understand, this guy Hamilton also was kind of like a petty player, as far as the Mafia went.
So like a low-level member, so does maybe some... who knows what talent he brings, but maybe petty crimes or steals cars or, whatever.
Let's pause for a moment and hear a message from our sponsors who make the show possible. One of the hitmen that Pusser suspected, was involved in his wife's killing was Towhead. And he's killed several years after Pauline, and many people speculated that Pusser himself hired the assassin to take White down, but the rumors were never confirmed. And then several years later, 2 more assassins named by Pusser were gunned down in Texas. And again, rumors swirled that Pusser had killed the men, but no charges were ever brought against him.
Oh, so 2 more men he named the night of Pauline's death, or the morning of her death?
Right, so he said Kirksey Nix.
Yeah, I think he claimed there was 4 members.
He claimed that, Nix had basically put this contract out and was like the money man behind, we've got to take out Pusser.
Okay.
And so then there's Towhead, there's these 2 other guys, and maybe Nix was with them, but I do believe, if memory serves,
he just orchestrated the hit.
There might have been 4 people involved, but he knew that this guy had orchestrated the hit, and he knew these 3 men. I guess he recognized who they were before they blew half his face off. But yeah, the rumors were swirling. People suspected these are the 3 guys.
Well, all 3 of those guys are dead.
Wow, they're all dead.
Well, yeah, it could be happenstance. They lived dangerous lives, I'm sure, but he's not a kind of man who's going to let go of something when he's been wronged, even over some money and, damn near beat to death, let alone the death of his wife. So you know what? If he did that, I think he's well within his rights.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, maybe so.
Some of that vigilante mountain justice.
That's right. I'm going to get my 4x4 and I'm going to kick your ass.
Okay, so we're going to take a small detour here because I wanted to talk about Towhead.
Every time you say his name, I was like, let's talk more about Towhead.
He was born December 31st, 1936 in Eupora, Mississippi. Of all the people in the State Line Mafia, some say Towhead was the only one who truly earned his reputation. Now, I'd kind of have to disagree on this because old Louise, she gave them a pretty good run for their money.
Yeah, no doubt.
Especially being a woman at this time. But Towhead came to be a part of the State Line, having been brought in by a friend named Barry Smith. Smith owned the Old Hickory Club in Guys, Tennessee. Towhead was over 6 foot tall, considered one of the 3 toughest men in town.
That's just like me.
Along with Tommy Bivens, and we'll get into Tommy Bivens in a minute, and Buford Pusser. So these are the 3, like, big dudes in town. Everybody's like, you don't want none of that.
Yeah, and I'm going to assume that all 3 of those big dudes have kicked ass, gotten in fights around bars, just grew up tough as hell.
Yep.
Okay.
Towhead was blonde, tall, and handsome, something of a ladies' man. He would drive his Cadillac around town, turning heads. White was a military deserter, and he went to work for Jack Haycock in the 1950s, after having been introduced through the Old Hickory Club. Now, his criminal activity spanned from Texas to Chicago. Another rumor is that Towhead was a driver for the New Orleans crime boss, Carlos Marcello.
Oh, wow.
Regardless, Towhead was a mean son of a bitch, with a penchant for cracking skulls. Towhead helped the flow of illegal liquor to the bars. He aided in prostitution, probably had some girls, that he was pimping, and also illegal gaming. Let's talk, we've been talking about the illegal gaming. So let's get into what they were doing. I mean, it wasn't exactly like they had some casino night.
Right.
They had this game called Razzle. And this was the game that they played at both the Shamrock and Towhead's club that he would later own, called the White Iris. It's a game where you roll the dice trying to reach a predetermined number, like, for example, 17. So if you roll the dice, and you fall on that number, your meal is free. And at the Shamrock, it was usually breakfast.
Okay.
So they would entice you like, oh, you want to play this game, get a free breakfast? And you'd win. Like, they had it rigged, so you'd win.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know exactly how that worked, but...
Oh, it was maybe loaded dice.
But they would rig it, be like, oh, this would draw the player into the game.
Oh.
So after the first roll, typically a customer would not land on the number for a second time. And so then it was usually kind of luring the person to keep playing with big money prizes, and the person would kind of keep playing in hopes of hitting this payload.
Oh, so they sucker him in there. It's like the drug dealer giving the, in the old PSAs, give the kid a hit for free, and then next thing you know, they're hooked.
Right.
Okay.
So give them the old razzle.
Yeah, well, you like those eggs and bacon? You want to play some more?
I'll give you some side of raisin toast if you roll the right number.
You can get some soupy oatmeal.
What do I have to do for a fucking Belgian waffle around here?
Yeah, I want a waffle and some fresh squeezed orange juice. What's got to happen for that?
Blowjob.
Oh.
Now, once Jack Haycock was gone, Towhead began controlling the state line using the Shamrock and the White Iris to conduct business. So once they offed Jack, Towhead was in cahoots, partnering with Louise. The two of them were like, we're seizing all the power.
Yeah, we're consolidating power.
He earned the nickname Al Capone of the South.
Oh.
Now, there's even a rumor that Pusser and Towhead shared the same mistress.
Ooh.
Because some people said they were very much alike. Like, even though Pusser was on the right side of the law.
Just as far as their attitude.
And Towhead was, kind of this bad guy or whatever.
Yeah.
That they both had similar personalities and kind of reminded people of each other. And they're like the two big tough guys in town.
And they came together in this woman.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's kind of gross.
I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just, figuratively. Like they joined. They were joined. Like, it's called docking, I think.
You need to
Let's not talk
wash
about that.
your dirty brain or your mouth out with some soap, Dylan.
And them guys at work use the Urban Dictionary. Some of that stuff's gross.
Like a lemon party?
Yeah. Do you want me to tell you what docking is? I will off air.
Maybe later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Towhead was indicted along with 4 others on an $11,000 armed robbery for a former carpet gambling casino in Biloxi in 1965.
So I was being silly there, but that's very interesting if they really did have the same mistress. And that she finds that, they're, even though they literally, one is the law, one's on the wrong side of the law, but they're very similar. They're alpha males. They both are.
So she has a type.
And she has a type, and she don't even give a damn. And she's just like, let's get all the big, I've
got the good boy and the bad boy.
Oh, and the batter boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the guy who comes by and checks the pool. No, that was stupid.
Okay.
Sorry.
Sure.
Yeah, but no, that's very interesting, and I'm sure that's probably just a rumor, right?
So here's Towhead. I mean, he's running all these like illegal gaming operations. He's got the moonshine. He's allegedly the driver of this big mafia guy. He is part of this armed robbery of a fucking casino.
Wow, these people are just doing whatever. They don't give a damn.
Yeah, and Towhead definitely is like, just don't give a fuck. Now, another member of the state line that we need to talk about is Tommy Bivens. And Tommy Bivens was a huge man. He stood about 6 foot tall, weighed 220 pounds, but it was like solid muscle.
Yeah, so he's a big square-shouldered guy.
People said he was just like a badass. He was a pipe fitter, and he worked these 12-hour shifts. Manual labor, doing hard work, and so he was just like stout.
Oh, yeah, those guys, that's all they do is hard work, all that heavy gear and stuff they're moving around and twisting all those pipes.
He was a well-liked guy and was considered a friend by both Towhead and Buford Pusser. Bivens was married to a woman named Barbara, and she had family ties to the Nightfall Motel in Corinth, Mississippi, where gambling and prostitution took place. His wife also was related to the Smiths, again, who owned the Old Hickory Club. And if you remember the Old Hickory Club, the Smith family, that's how Towhead got his connection into this life of crime.
Yeah, so what's funny is these are small town areas, rural, very limited amount of people. So everybody knows everybody, and they basically know everybody's business.
Exactly.
So, I mean, it's not like, all these elements are unknown to each other. They literally know who each other is and what they do, and they have, to the point where they might have friends, in common and things like that, or relatives, or so-and-so's sister, dated his cousin, so that's pretty crazy.
Well, and these are small towns, like you mentioned, so some of these people kind of grew up together.
Yeah, so, I mean...
Tommy's buddies with Buford the sheriff, but he's also friends with Towhead.
So, I mean, they know what's going on, and it's kind of right, you can't hide it from each other, and it's almost like there's almost a strange admiration between the, you know what I mean? And everybody's a fucking tough guy, and everybody's kicking ass. So, I mean, could you imagine being a local in one of these places? And you go down the Shamrock, they'll kick the shit out of you for some free omelets. I mean, what the hell's going on in this place?
This had to be some, surreal times.
Yeah.
Right?
Liquor and girls and drugs.
I mean, it sounds fun.
Mobs. Yeah, what the hell, bro?
But though her family was tied up in this lifestyle, it didn't seem that Barbara really had anything to do with the family business. During this time and in the 60s, she was a nursing student, good girl. Nobody ever really knew of her having any illegal dealings. So she marries Tommy. And Tommy was a guy who was often hanging around beer joints, and usually with Towhead. And at some point, Towhead, now this is crazy, he shoots Bivens in the face.
Oh,
now, I can tell you guys the story. This pair's hanging out at a bar. They're at this beer joint, right? They're throwing a few back. And they get into this conversation because it would always come up about the three toughest guys in town. You got Pusser, you got Towhead, and Bivens, right?
Yeah, anytime you have alcohol and people talking, these kind of conversations are going to come up.
Well, as you like to say, Dylan, people were yeasting them up.
Oh, the yeast beast.
Yeah, and so this was something that kind of happened quite a bit. People would always be like, who do you think would win a fight between you two, right? Well, it just so happened that this conversation hit at the right time, I guess, when these two drunk knuckleheads were like, let's see. So they get into a fight. A friendly fight. Right? Tommy.
Towhead and Bivens.
Tommy and Towhead, yep. Tommy, being this fucking muscled, stout, pipe fitter guy, he actually beats the crap out of Towhead.
Oh, shit, he got out on Towhead's ass.
Beats the shit out of him.
Uh-oh.
Towhead, in this furious rage at having, had his ass kicked in front of people, his pride is hurt, pulls out a gun and shoots his friend Tommy in the face.
Oh, my God.
And then he immediately apologizes. I'm so sorry. I did not mean to do this. These guys were nuts.
Now, did it kill Tommy?
No.
Oh, my God.
No.
Now, see, imagine watching this scene unfold. You're down there just having a couple of drinks. Maybe you and your girl went out for the first time in forever because you got kids and a babysitter. And this shit goes down in the parking lot.
Yeah, I mean, research, different, materials that I read, newspaper reports and that kind of thing, is that they're like loading Tommy into this ambulance and his face is bleeding and he's all like, what the hell? What'd you do to me, you son of a bitch? And then Towhead's like, I'm so sorry, man. I love you. Don't be mad at me. Please don't be mad at me.
Yeah, don't come whoop my ass no more. I done shot you in the face and you're still alive.
Again, these guys were something else. In 1965, White had plans to make moonshine in 3 states. Now, up until this point, Tommy Bivens hadn't really been in the mix or in the fold.
He's kind of just around the edges.
He's just a buddy and whatever.
He knows people.
Towhead has this plan. He's going to make this moonshine. He's got 3 states he's going to operate in. He purchased a lot of 55-gallon drums and a lot of other items and builds a 1,500-gallon still, which he estimated would produce 4,000 gallons of moonshine every 5 days.
Wow, that's got to be a pretty good size still, right?
Oh, yeah. Now, at some point, and I don't know why, couldn't really find a reason, Towhead gets spooked and decides he wants this still to be moved. I guess it's in Tennessee, and he wants to move it over to Mississippi. It is when this happens that the site gets raided. Now, Tommy has agreed to help him with this.
Okay.
Like, okay, I'll help you move the still.
Kind of the first time he's getting
We'll set up this moonshine business. I mean, up until this point, Tommy wasn't really like a
hands-on,
a regular kind of player in this. So Tommy, along with a few others, are busted, arrested, and Tommy is sentenced to 18 months of probation for his involvement with Towhead's moonshine scheme.
Because he has no record. This is probably the first major trouble he's getting into.
Tommy also shot and killed a man named Nimbo Price.
Oh, shit. Okay, well, never mind.
Price was a known criminal associate of Towhead and others in the state line. Now, just before Towhead was shot and killed in his car outside a motel, which, remember, people think that this was arranged by Buford.
In retaliation for his wife's murder.
Right.
Okay.
So people were thinking that Towhead's assassinated, it's all Buford. He's shot and killed in his car outside of this motel. Well, Nimbo, just before all this had happened, I mean, just maybe like 2 days before or something, Nimbo had shown up at this trailer where Towhead and his wife were staying and attacked Towhead.
Man, this is what I just couldn't live like this.
So Towhead didn't press charges, but Nimbo was then killed by Tommy Bivens.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Bivens' wife, Barbara, as I mentioned now, she's the one that has the family ties to these, 2 separate bars and everything. And up until this point, like, there really hasn't been any, I guess, evidence to show that she was involved. But she wrote a book, and it's called Tommy and Me, and it's about her experiences.
Oh, my God, the stories she could tell, I bet.
Well, the thing is, and now I didn't find a copy of this, it's like out of date, or I mean, I think it was one of those kind of like home published projects back in the day, But I read some reviews of the book, and I mean, okay, so apparently Barbara Bivens is obsessed with Elvis.
Oh.
And claims that when she was a young woman, she dated Elvis while she was in Memphis in nursing school.
Well, yeah, I'm sure a young Elvis floating around. I'm sure he met some young ladies.
Well, Priscilla Presley had written a book called Elvis and Me.
Oh,
so
okay.
when Barbara wrote her biography, it's Tommy and Me.
Maybe not as exciting. Maybe more exciting.
Because she's like really obsessed with Elvis. And like I said, I didn't read this book, but many of the reviews were kind of making fun of her a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Now, she denies there was any kind of state line mafia. It did not exist. None of this happened.
You have to say that.
And she trashes Buford Pusser. And we'll get into some more of that in a minute.
Okay.
Despite vowing to bring his wife's murderers to justice, Pusser was unable to bring Kirksey Nix or any of the accused to justice. Nix was sentenced to the Louisiana State Penitentiary in Angola for an Easter Sunday assassination of a New Orleans grocer. And again, we are going to have a part 2, and we're going to get all up in the Kirksey Nick story.
Oh my God, that story! I forgot. Oh my holy cow! Okay, so full disclosure to our regular listeners, I tried to do some of this on Patreon. Like, where
you mean you tried to
I tried
narrate an episode?
I tried to like lead an episode, research it, and all that. And I suck at that. If you've never been exposed to that, I think you guys have along the way, maybe. And I'm still not any better. So we're just going to keep letting Heather drive this thing. But studying this, and that's when I kind of stumbled on Pusser, which you'd already been working on some of this stuff. And I was just like, what? Every one of these characters has these incredible stories that you could not make up.
Well, that's why I'm like, okay, we're going to take a little detour here. I really wanted to talk about some of these people and just give you an idea of who they were, what they were doing, because it's such a cast of like fucking characters.
Oh my God.
This is like something out of Goodfellas.
It really is. Like,
I mean, it's like when you imagine what the Mafia would be like, and especially when you think of like the state line Mafia. I mean, come on, it's like the Southern group of gangsters.
It's just like Goodfellas out in the country. I mean, really is.
I mean, so there's just so much detail, and I really wanted to share that with you guys. I hope that by like having, maybe those details, it's not too confusing and you can keep up. In 1969, the Tennessee General Assembly recognizes Buford Pusser for his accomplishments and made him an honorary sergeant of arms. His career as sheriff ended in 1970, but his fame was just the beginning. He signed a contract with Bing Crosby Productions in 1972 to film his life story.
Well, I think he's definitely a study in being honest and righteous and believing in what you're doing and sacrificing everything. I mean, everything at all costs to do the right thing and to clean his local community up.
Many of you may have heard about Pusser's story. Maybe you didn't even realize what it was. Walking Tall.
Yeah.
Became a box office smash. Huge movie. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. But Pusser died in a car wreck in 1974.
It just took some coincidence or some happenstance to take him out.
He was killed in a car accident after leaving a county fair. He hit an embankment and was ejected from the car. But his daughter and mother believe this was a murder, not an accident.
Well, I mean, there was multiple, attempts on his life over the years. Some people wanted him dead. A lot of people wanted him dead. Some very bad people. So who's to say they didn't mess with his car and make some kind of mechanical failure? And because it's like coming at him full on, you might get killed messing with him. I mean, really.
His death and the success of the first story spawned 2 sequels, neither of which was as successful as the first. Pusser was ineligible for re-election, as I mentioned, in 1970 due to the term limit that was then in effect. And then he was defeated in a bid for sheriff in 1972. Pusser blamed the loss to incumbent Sheriff Clifford Coleman in part he blamed it on the controversy surrounding this movie, Walking Tall.
Oh, yeah. So his story had been out there and people were talking about it. Okay.
Now, he was reelected as the constable of Adamsville by a majority of voters who wrote his name on their ballots.
So is that back when they had the system in some of these areas, like the constable would be the local constable, and then you'd have a sheriff of the entire county, right?
And like a police chief.
But a constable might even have to go to more than one, be the
might
problem
be more of
solver.
Like 2 or 3 county. I mean, yeah.
2 or 3 townships.
Well, that's kind of what I've read about constables in other states.
Right.
I'm assuming it's probably the same in Tennessee.
Okay.
Now, a variety of sources, including FBI documents, suggest there may have been more to the story. Barbara Bivens, remember Tommy and me? She said, and this is a quote, "I don't think Buford Pusser was part of the solution. I thought he was part of the problem." Bivens published her book all about, the state line back in the 1960s, and her husband Tommy was considered a state liner. He would hang out at all those establishments and, knew Buford. And she said that's another misconception. Buford Pusser didn't shut down the state line. Bivens says FBI documents support her claims. Documents she provided in her book show that White has a fix with the new sheriff at Selmer, Tennessee.
Okay.
So she's claiming that Towhead was working with Buford.
All right.
In her book. And Bivens also claims in the book that Pusser murdered club owner Louise Haithcock. Barbara says that the autopsy showed Haithcock was shot in the back by Pusser, so there was no way that she could have pulled this gun on him, that it was all staged.
Yeah.
And she continues by saying, quote, I think Louise Haithcock was murdered. It's quite simple. And the claims are part of, some growing research, and some of it does seem a little bit outlandish. I mean, when you look at the big story of Buford Pusser, I'm sure there's been a lot of stories that, kind of exaggerated and swelled, and he may have done this one thing, but then it kind of grew into something more. I mean, that's just what happens with these local legends, if you will.
Well, yeah, that can happen.
But Bivens also says, and this is very controversial, that Buford Pusser actually murdered his wife and then shot himself to cover up the crime.
Yeah, see, okay, this girl also says there is no state line mafia, nobody's making whiskey, nobody's beating the shit out of people at the gambling houses. So, I don't know. I don't know if I believe anything she's saying, I'm going to be honest.
Well, Pusser's daughter, Dewana, has publicly stated that this claim is ridiculous.
That makes no sense. I mean, that does not make any sense at all.
Right.
For him to kill his wife and shoot himself with a long rifle. That's impossible.
Well, and like I said, I didn't read Barbara's book. I just kind of jotted down some information that was available, little excerpts I could find online, and then some of the reviews on the book. And a lot of people were like, look, this woman is painting it like these mafia types were just wonderful people.
Right.
They were doing no wrong, and that, Buford Pusser was the enemy. And it's like, okay, but there's plenty of evidence to suggest these people were engaging in illegal activity. There were bodies, there were murders, there were witnesses to this crime.
Well, yeah, there's countless accounts of being beat, being robbed, being tricked. So yeah, I think that's a little ridiculous, but we didn't live through it, so we don't know for sure what she's saying. Some of it doesn't have merit, so there's that. Barbara,
honey, just stick to teasing up that bouffant.
Tommy and Me, Part 2.
Listening to your teddy bear album.
Can I write a book? Heather and Me?
Oh, God.
Oh, my, the stories I could tell. These people don't even know.
You have stories?
I have stories about you.
What about me?
Accusations. Controversial accusations.
Well, can you save that for a minute? Let me just finish this up.
No, yeah, that's fine.
And then you can bash me or whatever.
No, I'm not going to tell anybody. The book will be forthcoming next year.
Today, a memorial stands in McNairy County, Tennessee, in the house that Buford Pusser was born in. Several movies called Walking Tall have been made about his life. Again, we talked about that briefly a minute ago. And they depict this man who cleaned up a town, got caught in the middle of this assassination attempt, and then spent the rest of his life hell-bent on vengeance for those who had hurt his family. Walking Tall was released in 1973, and it starred Joe Don Baker as Buford Pusser. And it's somewhat of a cult film.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, it's one of those things that get into the lexicon of pop culture, the rhetoric or whatever. But yeah, people know about it, even if they've never seen it. Even young people know the reference and the newer iterations of it with The Rock.
Well, again, it sparked the 2 sequels, and they didn't really do as well as the original.
No,
there was a TV movie, a brief-lived TV series, and then a remake, as you mentioned, starring The Rock.
The Rock and Johnny Knoxville.
But the original Walking Tall movie still has a 75% rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
I think that's amazing because Rotten Tomatoes didn't even exist when Walking Tall was made, 73.
So to wrap up the story, part 1, in an interview with the Daily Mountain Eagle in 1973, Pusser said, "Who, me? National hero? I don't feel like a national hero. I'm just a country boy from Tennessee."
Oh, he's grounded. I like that. And that's exactly what I'd expect Buford to say. Mr. Pusser, I applaud you.
In part 2 of this state line mafia story, we're going to dive into the Dixie Mafia, which has ties to the state line mafia. We're going to get into Kirk C. Nix and a whole nother enchilada that is wild, wacky, wow.
You can't make it. We got strip clubs. We got murder. We have conspiracies.
cons.
scams. We got prison. Oh my gosh. You can't even make this up, guys. That was just literally the first part of it.
Oh, yeah. There's
Wow.
more to come.
Yes. Yeah. What can I talk about now?
What do you want to talk about?
I don't know.
What's your tell-all book going to be?
I just wrote a book.
What's Heather and me going to be about?
While you was doing that podcast just now, I wrote a book.
Okay, what was it about?
It's called Heather and Me,
Right?
written by Dylan.
Did you write it with a crayon?
It's illustrated with a crayon.
Is it a purple crayon?
No, it's a red crayon.
Like Harold and the purple crayon?
It's a red crayon for love. It's all about how much I love Heather.
Oh,
And I recount some very touching, tender moments we've had together.
you're sweet.
It's true.
Oh, we should tell folks we celebrated our 2-year wedding anniversary this past
Oh, my
week.
God. She has put up with me for 2 years plus now.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
we're almost celebrating our 2-year podcast anniversary. It's coming up soon.
She put me to work as soon as she got me in the house.
It's true.
Well,
There was a grace period.
by work, I mean she does all the work and I just come along for the ride.
It's true.
But I love it.
It's okay, Dylan. People love you, and you get a lot of recognition for being like the cute, adorable, funny, awesome guy.
Well,
And I don't mind that because it's true. You bring a lot of pizzazz
I don't know about
and
that.
sass
Oh, girl.
and charisma to
Wait
the
a minute.
table.
Tell me more.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. But I do appreciate this. I appreciate all the stuff you do, all the hard work. And we wouldn't be doing this without you, obviously. I wouldn't have this chance to smoke cigarettes in the green room and wait to be called in.
Derailed Dylan.
Derailed Dylan, get on down here. You know, I've been thinking about jumping those trains. You know what I've been thinking about?
Well, okay, so I agreed. We had this discussion about train hopping or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And I agreed. If you really wanted to do this, we could take a week, one of your 8-day breaks,
Okay.
and we could try to live life on the wild side.
We're going to live the rail car life.
But my only stipulation is we can do this all day, but in the evening time, when it's dark, I would like to come home and take a hot shower and brush my teeth and sleep in our super comfortable bed.
So are you hearing? This is exactly what she laid out to me, folks. Are you hearing this? She's like, we can go do it. We'll be like we're homeless, crust punks,
I'll
hobos,
panhandle with you.
whatever. We're going to ask a couple people, hey, can you spare some change? We're
We
going to
can
be very
dumpster dive.
polite. We may dumpster dive behind some of our favorite restaurants in the local area.
We can ride like a freight car, like 2 or 3 miles down the train tracks.
Just from like Waynesville to Canton.
They don't really go that
and then we
far.
got to get off.
Right.
So then but she wants to be home by dark.
Yeah.
We get cleaned up from our day of hoboing
Right.
and sleep in our comfortable bed.
Yeah. I
Okay.
don't feel like that's too much to ask.
Okay, I think
I'm trying to let you indulge and live out your fantasies.
okay.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm compromising with you.
Yeah.
But you know me, I have to have a shower
See,
every
I've done.
day.
The other thing I was
I
thinking
just
is
can't.
I need the train to be stopped when I jump this rail
Oh, okay.
car.
So you don't want to like chase it down and then try
No.
to jump on
no,
or something?
that seems very dangerous.
Or like have me try to pull you on?
Oh, and have the thing where I slip and then I got like the one hand and you're like,
Yeah.
it's the camera's tight shot on your hand
'Cause
reaching
I
for my
don't
hand.
feel like that's going to go very well for
With my
us.
little hands, I don't know if I can do anything.
You do have
about it.
tiny hands.
Yeah.
And then I mean, I don't, I'm not insulting you, but you do weigh quite a bit more than
You're
me.
stout for your size.
I mean, I am pretty stout, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull your big ol' ass up.
You're a
on
good
freight car
homesteader.
while it's moving.
But yeah, I don't know if you can throw this
Thanks,
big
Dylan.
guy.
Why don't you just go ahead and tell everybody, like, hey, my wife's kind of chubby and fat. A homesteader.
My wife is reliable and the best woman in the world. Okay? That's what you are.
Oh, so now I'm reliable. So it's like a nice way of being like,
You're super cute and you're my one and only.
you looked better a couple years ago when I met you.
Oh, that's a damn lie. You look better every day. It just keeps getting better, baby.
So do you see what bullshit I put up with?
It's the truth.
I mean,
though.
he's super sweet, but I know he's a damn liar.
I have a very bad short-term memory, and I smoke cigarettes and I drink a little beer. So.
He literally asked me like 4 times today, oh, when we record later, what was the case again? And I'm like, you know this. We're talking about the State Line Mafia. We're talking about Buford Pusser.
She's
I've been
like,
telling
what
you
the
this
hell,
all
dude?
week. And then right before we sit down, he's like, no, what was that case again we were talking about?
Oh, my God.
And I was like, what is wrong with you, boy?
I smoked so much marijuana when I was younger, I think I was stunned in my brain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, because she's like, you literally started looking into this. You've researched this stuff, and you can't remember for like, she'll tell me something, and I'll be like, oh, a butterfly. And then I'm just totally a clean slate. It's like it's like somebody gives me a pill that makes me lose all, and I'm just I'm a Manchurian candidate.
He sees something shiny, and he just takes off.
Oh, my God. That shit happens at work. They'll be like, oh, we have this very important task, or you need to go check this equipment, $100,000 piece of equipment. And I'm just like, oh, I get a message from Heather or something about what we're going to eat for dinner when we get home, and I just totally forget about what I was doing or going looking
Dylan's like,
at.
oh, I found a stick of gum in my pocket. What?
Oh, look at that.
Is that supposed to be doing something?
How's this lint getting in my pockets? I don't remember ever putting lint in there.
Huh.
Oh, shit. I try really hard, though. So anyway.
These people are probably sick of listening to us. Well, maybe not.
That's enough for now.
Maybe they like the banter.
Yep, we love you, and we love each other.
Hit subscribe. Of course, word of mouth goes a long way. If you've got friends who are into true crime, recommend our podcast. One of the number one things that I hear from true crime fans when they talk about podcasts, they're like, I'm sick of listening to the same 10 cases. And as a true crime fan, I get that.
There's only so many times you can hear about Charles Manson.
Right.
And it's very interesting and scary.
And so I get a lot of feedback on Twitter and places. People are like, oh, it just seems like it's kind of the same recycled stories. Every podcast is talking about the same cases.
The top 20.
And so I really try to choose cases that you've never heard before, maybe you know a little bit about, but hey, we're going to fill you in on the deets.
Or a bunch of cases you've never heard before at all.
So I really hope that by bringing you these obscure cases that you find mountain murders interesting. But again, pass it on to a friend. Hey, you don't want to hear about John Wayne Gacy? I've got a perfect podcast for you where you're probably never going to hear about John Wayne Gacy.
Yeah, not only are you helping someone discover us, which helps us, you're helping out your true crime friend. And they're like, holy shit, you just turned me on to like almost 100 episodes and I ain't heard none of this stuff, y'all.
Right. So hit subscribe, tell your friends, and of course we love those 5-star reviews.
Oh, yeah, I must say.
Our listeners who take the time to write us a great review. And most of those I've found are on Apple. We really appreciate that.
Most of them are. And I must say, we've been getting a lot of those lately. You guys are really, really coming through for us. And just on top of whether or not it helps on the charts or makes us visible, it really means a lot to us.
We just like to hear feedback from you.
We love to hear that it's made your day, or you listen to, us on the way to work, or you've had a long day and you listen to us and unwind. That means so much, and that's one of the reasons we keep going.
Exactly, and we love your feedback, and Dylan gave you our email address at the beginning of the show. I'll give that to you again. It's mountainmurderspodcast@gmail.com. If you have a few moments, shoot us an email.
You can say anything.
Let us know what you think. If you've got a case suggestion, something you want to tell us about the show, you've got a favorite episode, you've got a great hobo name for me.
Yeah, Heather needs a hobo name.
I'm open to a hobo name.
I'm Derailed Dylan.
As I'm out hoboing for like 11 hours of the day.
Yeah.
Then returning home to my house for my shower and my perfect bed.
Okay, so I have a name now.
I'm like a part-timer.
Thanks to Swan. Swan. I hope I'm saying your name close to right. Love you. Heather needs a name now, guys. I'm Derailed Dylan. She's going to be my hobo partner. This is going to happen.
Awesome. You can also find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. Just look up Mountain Murders Podcast. Is that it, Dylan? Are you just going to stare at me? Are you going to be like, bye, guys?
Bye, guys.
Come back, y'all. You hear? Come back again.
That's
what
right.
did they say at the end of the Beverly Hillbillies?
Y'all come back now. You hear?
See? Perfect. I love it. Keep that energy alive, Dylan. Our favorite pastime is watching true crime TV and horror movies. And when we're snuggled up on the couch, I've been enjoying our brand new Everlasting Comfort luxury faux fur throw blanket. It's a soft, silky, and lightweight throw, perfect for the couch. It feels like real fur. It's plush, smooth, and oh so comfy.
She doesn't even want to snuggle me anymore.
We ordered the teal-colored throw. It's gorgeous. And the best part is there's a lifetime replacement guarantee. If anything happens, they'll send you a new blanket at no cost. You can relax worry-free knowing you can rely on the help of Everlasting Comfort.
Check out Everlasting Comfort for the softest blanket ever.